What's up? Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads, and check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the UFC event, UFC 278 from the weekend. It was a bonkers event. Now what I want to just say is this: if you haven't found out the results yet, now's the time to tune out. Alright, you're still here? Fantastic. This event was insane. This was an event that I think a lot of people in UFC 278 were going to just take a pass on, take a miss on, because they probably knew the outcomes of these fights before they looked at them, or so they thought, because this was an event that even I myself slept on. I said, probably won't be great, and I happened to turn it on and I started to watch it, and it was the Jose Aldo versus Merab fight. Now I'm not even going to attempt to say Merab's second name, but I started to watch it Jordan Allen, and I said, this is a really top tier fight here. These are two really good fighters, and the way he was pushing himself, in particular Merab, upon Jose Aldo was very interesting to see, because there's not very many fighters that can do that to Jose Aldo. Now I understand that Jose Aldo's coming towards the end, and that's part and parcel of it. And also as well, Merab has that similar kind of, I think he's from Kazakhstan, or not Kazakhstan, Dagestan, the same as Khabib. He certainly was wearing the same headpiece anyway. They have that style where if they push you up against the railings, that they're just going to hang around there and tire you out. Now I will say this. This is where a lot of frustration from the likes of me comes into this, with the likes of Daniel Cormier as a commentator. Darren Till has openly said that Daniel Cormier shouldn't be commentating fights, and I agree with him, because I think Daniel Cormier is an awful commentator, but I also think the way he simps for wrestling is very negative, and it's very negative for the sport. Because here's the thing: if you're someone that's out there, and in particular Americans get wheeled into this one an awful lot, that is interested in wrestling, go off and watch the likes of the WWE or WWF or whatever it's calling itself these days. Go over and watch that, because these would be the same people that be going, oh, you don't like wrestling, well you shouldn't watch UFC, you've just got to watch kickboxing. Now hang on here for a second. In every other region in the world, fighting is considered something when you're kicking someone or punching someone. Not hugging someone, not lying on someone. That's not considered fighting whatsoever in every other region around the world. Alright, so you're going to have to stop. So the first thing that needs to happen is this. I would rather see the likes of Dominic Cruz be on the commentary team. Because here's the thing, and here's the problem with the commentary team now at the moment, is you've John Anik, right? And John Anik is terrible. And he's there as a product placement. He is there to say, hi guys, make sure you check out this stream, because we're going to be going on and we are going to show you Ferrari this weekend in cinemas, July 21st. And you're like, what is this about? Like, this is taking you right out of the fight. It's terrible to listen to. So John Anik as well too was another one that was, he might have knowledge. It's terrible to listen to this constant advertisement going, and sometimes you cut Rogan off. Rogan is actually making an important point, and positional wise or striking wise, or he's giving you some history about the fire, and next of all you'll hear this ridiculous commentary coming through like, make sure you stay minty fresh, Mentos out now in stores right now, and you're like, what is this about? So anyway, that one aside, Dominic Cruz is a much better commentator than Daniel Cormier, because Dominic Cruz is interested in positioning and he's interested in striking. He is not going all in on, get him on the ground and lie on him guys, it's, you know, it's wrestling and it's great to look at. Stop. Anyway, I'm speaking negatively about the commentary team, because the commentary team, Jordan, events like this do irk me, because Daniel Cormier was losing his reason he was with Kamaru Usman in that 5-round fight. It was insane to see the simp, and it really was for the wrestling. It's awful to watch. Anyway, I want to start off by saying this. This is probably not going to get out to too many people, I suppose, but if you're a friend of Luke Rockhold, please check in on him. This is a very strange fight, and it was a weird fight to watch, and I have to say, given what Luke Rockhold has shared recently about his own private life, and in particular the girl that he used to be with, the girlfriend he used to have, and the unborn involved in that situation, you only have to look at the articles to see what that is about. If you're a friend of Luke Rockhold, you probably need to check in on him very soon and very quickly, because this was a man that I was looking at, Jordan, that fight, and there was a number of things that happened, and as you can see here with this image, it looked like a fella that was checked out and was looking to go out on a shield. Now, that's not the type of guy Luke Rockhold is, and the commentary team, I think, did him an enormous disservice by saying that it was the altitude and these were the problems. I didn't think so. I think he was tired, but I do think that an awful lot of it was mental, and the fact that he's focused on some of these build-ups, by the way, on what has happened to him over the last year. So if you're a friend of this guy, please check in on him, because it just, I don't think it looked good. And that was something that Rogan was even talking about, and Cormier was making it all about himself by saying, I want to run over and give him a hug and all that. You need to be checking in on this guy and making sure he's alright mentally, because this looked like a guy that to me didn't look mentally sound, and concerns is what I would say at the very least, especially with what you know about men, and in particular what men suffer with, and something that Paddy the Baddy had only talked about a couple of weeks ago. You need to check in on this guy if I was a mate of yours, you know what I mean, Luke Rockhold. But what I'd say about this fight was, this was insane. It was bonkers. I will say this. I thought during the fight that Paulo Costa had done well, and I think some of the strange things that happened in the fight, I think threw Paulo Costa off. I highly expected Paulo Costa to take this fella out pretty early and pretty quickly, and there was a number of times that he could have done that, I think, and just couldn't do it. I think that this, if you're looking at Paulo Costa for the likes of a title shot or anything like that, I don't think this did him any favours. He got a decision in the end, and he did win the fight in my view. But there was a number of times, and it's going to go down as being iconic now, where Luke Rockhold at one stage wound up a punch, said fuck you to Paulo Costa, and then hit him. It was bizarre. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. And then even when they're on the ground as well too, Costa had him in a chokehold. He was trying to get him out of there, and Luke Rockhold was just screaming fuck you at him, and I was like, this is insane. And then obviously as well too, I can't show the image here, but that image is going to go down in infamy now, when he was rubbing his face on Paulo Costa's at the end. He wasn't even throwing punches at him, he was just rubbing his face on him. That was insane. And I have to say, like, if you were there at that point in time in that arena, it must have been crazy, because that was a crazy fight to witness. And I'm glad that I watched it live and was able to see it, because it was just end-to-end action. But like I said as well too, for Paulo Costa's point of view, it's not great reading for you going forward, you know, because Luke Rockhold did look kind of done throughout that fight, and you weren't able to take him out. The next one is this. The Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman fight was again hampered by bad commentary from Daniel Cormier, because he's talking about fellas like Usman pushing Leon Edwards up against the fence and saying, look at this and look at that. It is awful to watch. Let's just be honest about that. It is awful to watch. It really is. And I'm happy when I see anybody that's related or indeed has any sort of business dealings with Ali Abdelaziz. I'm happy when his fighters are losing, for sure. Now, Kamaru Usman, that's not to take away anything away from this fella being a great champion, and he's a fantastic fighter. And indeed, like I'm talking about the wrestling aspect, this fella is a guy that's got serious wins on his list, and indeed knockouts. So that's not to take away from him. I did find it weird though, because even when you look at the frame of both of these men, most of the time you would expect, particularly in a sport like this, the bigger man to win. And I mean, you just look at Usman. Usman is just so wide, and it was very clear as well, even in the lead up to this, when they're showing them side by side, that Edwards is much more of a slight man. He's much more compact. And I said to myself, right, he could be in trouble here, because Usman just looks so big. And Usman didn't seem to want to engage too much in what would be perceived as kicking and boxing. He didn't. And I was really surprised at that, because I said to myself, like, Usman is super powerful, and I would have expected that a lot more. However, it didn't happen. And I think that that's to the detriment of Usman as to what happened later on, because I think if he'd have put the pressure on Edwards a lot more, I think Edwards probably would have been out there, because you've seen it even between rounds when he was talking to his corner, and his corner were disgusted with him. And I have to say, I'll be honest with you, that's the big difference between, say, corners in different countries. And the UK corner that was there for Leon Edwards was wonderful. They were telling him he was doing terribly. They were telling him he's going to have to pull it out of nowhere. They were telling him that it wasn't a good performance, and that how could he hold his head up with that type of performance. It's amazing, because you see other fighters that go into corners and they're talking to their coaches, they're looking at their coaches, and they're like, you're doing a great performance, but they're being spanked around the octagon. And, you know, you've got this nice type of, you know, you're doing great, just keep it up. No, you're not. You're 2 rounds down. You need to pull it back now at this stage of the game, and you're in trouble. You know what I mean? And I like the frankness from Leon Edwards' corner, and I actually think that's what majorly contributed to this freak win. Now, when I say freak win, Rogan said it early in the fight. He said that Leon Edwards, he said you still have to be careful about him because he's a sniper. And that's exactly what he did. He lured Usman in, he did, with a punch, and Usman ducked to the right, and Leon Edwards came with this left leg and absolutely put this fella, as I think Rogan said it, into the shadow realm. He was gone. Now, I think with the build up to this fight, had this been a Colby Covington, I think he would have followed him to the ground. But I want to say this, fair play to Herb Dean, by the way. Herb Dean was in very quickly because Edwards, to his credit, didn't decide to go and strike Usman whilst he was on the ground. I mean, there's always that famous image of Dan Henderson and Michael Bisping. That'll never be forgotten. And indeed as well too, Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren. Herb Dean was really in there quick, and I thought that was surprising, but to his credit, that's what he's there for. He's there for the protection of the fire. But to his credit, Leon Edwards didn't seem interested in that. Now, is that naivety? Possibly, because when you see someone that's like Usman that is good and that's taken those wobbles before. I mean, I remember even the Gilbert Burns fight, and that to me was the cracks in the foundation of Usman. I said to myself, even watching that Gilbert Burns fight, this is a fella that can be cracked, and if he's cracked, he can go. And Burns, I think, again, you're talking about the wrestling and stuff, and that's why Usman is champion and has been champion, is because he was able to wrestle Burns around and get him tired, and it's woeful to look at. However, if Burns was able to crack him, which, you know, I know people will say, well, listen, that's why it's up to Burns to do that. I agree with you on that one, but my God. Anyway, that's what Edwards was able to do. Lured him in, boom, and he absolutely spanked him with that kick. Now, this was the image that I wanted to pull because here's Cormier, right? Rogan is doing everything that everyone else is doing, which is, holy shit, this fella is 4 rounds down. I think it's fair to say that. I think it's very fair to say that Leon Edwards was losing those 4 rounds. I think maybe some people might argue and say maybe round 1. Maybe. Yeah, okay, I'll go with round 1. I think round 1, you could safely give it, and that's what I'm saying, about 70% of me is saying, yeah, you could give it to Edwards, right? But others might disagree, and that's fine. But I think the other rounds, I think Usman was very much so winning, and I think that's where UFC probably needs to change up its scoring structure, because it's giving way too many points to people with the likes of wrestling backgrounds, and it's woeful to watch. I'd rather see damage and punches landed, strikes landed and stuff like that. I'd rather see that be worth more than the wrestling. That's just me. But Rogan was all of us, and this shot here of Cormier is the wrestling community, and indeed Cormier himself. He didn't look overjoyed, and there's a number of images as well too that he's registered shock on his face, but like it looks like disappointment, because he's seeing the wrestling fella getting spanked out of it, and he knows as well too that everybody else loves the likes of Leon Edwards and what he was able to do. And indeed Colby Covington, whilst he focuses in on wrestling as well too, likes to mix it up and likes to fight. I will say this, I'd rather see a champion like Leon Edwards that's out there, that's happy to go toe to toe with people and wants to fight rather than wrestle. That's just me. That's why I like the likes of, say, Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane at the moment. They're fellas that want to go out and fight. They don't want to go out and playing tiddlywinks with each other, you know what I mean? So, again, I was happy to see this, and this reaction from Rogan was all of us for sure. But what an event that was put on the weekend, and like I said, it was an event that I think a lot of people, myself included, slept on. But I think it turned into one of those events now that people will remember for a long time. Such unpredictable things that were happening, such insane images that came out after the fact. And I think now it was an event that Luke Rockhold was a character and indeed a fighter that I always I didn't know whether I was really into him. I think Bisping did very well against him as well too, and he was a good champion until that happened. But it was always a character that seemed kind of strange and aloof and stuff like that. But I did have to say I respected him. And I mean, I respect anybody that gets into Octagon. Let's just be serious about this. These people that get into the Octagon, that spend the time, the hours, the days, the weeks, the months, the years, getting into these positions and putting their all on the line here in front of massive crowds, in front of the world, deserve nothing but respect. These guys and ladies that are involved in this organisation are incredible. And I think it's incredible shows like this that put it on that makes you remember and makes you think back and say, hang on, I might not like Khabib, I might not like Luke Rockhold, I might not like Kamaru Usman, I might not like a litany of fighters within this organisation, but they're going out there and they're doing this and they are putting it all on the line, and that has to be respected. And sometimes it does take, when a career ends like Luke Rockhold, to actually sit back and go, do you know what, mate, fair play to you. You got in there, you did that, you put in the work, you were a champion, you were a great champion. You also then put on like a performance like this to end it off on a high. It was wonderful stuff, and I'm sure the sport as well too will miss him going down later on down the road. And I mean, this guy I'm sure has great potential as being a coach later on down. But I think whilst I'm criticising and stuff like that, Nothing can be taken away from these people that get into this octagon and put on performances like this. And again, like I said, an event that was slept on, there's other ones that are going to be much more hyped up, and there has been already this year that were much more hyped up. But fantastic of event, and fair play to all the fighters that are involved. And just as an aside as well too, I just want to say Francis Ngannou is making some brilliant statements lately, and he's talking about the sponsorships as well that fighters should be getting, and the sponsorships that they're missing out on. Let them have the sponsorships, because everybody knows about the pay. And I mean, you're looking at fights here that are happening with these guys, and these guys aren't earning that much in comparison to what they should be and what they previously were when sponsorships were let run riot in the UFC. I get the idea that they want them to look professional with the likes of the shorts and stuff like that from, I think Venom are making them now. But UFC needs to start letting these people earn, and particularly through sponsorships, because these guys and ladies are putting it all on the line, and they do deserve the money that should be coming their way, in my view. So fair play to Francis Ngannou. I hope he keeps talking and keeps stepping out. And with him being such a dominant champion and probably gone into the world of movies now at this stage, from what I understand, I think he's right. I think he's right to be saying these things, and I think that's the way to go about it. So anyway, brilliant event. Really well done to everybody involved in this event. I think it was wonderful stuff. Fair play. I mean, I'm delighted to see Leon Edwards now as the champion. This makes for a big mix-up amongst that weight class. I'll be excited to see who comes next. Is it going to be a rematch with Usman due to the... I mean, some people might say the freak nature of it. I wouldn't say freak nature of it. I mean, he lured him in particularly to do that. So I don't know if it was you can say it's a freak nature thing. You know, it's happened in the past with Anderson Silva and Chad Sonnen. Chad Sonnen was absolutely ragdolling Anderson Silva, and Anderson Silva caught him. So he did prove then later on then Anderson Silva again that he is the greatest of all time. That's another thing, by the way, I wanted to say. He was very close. Usman was very close to equaling the record of Anderson Silva, and I said to myself, I fucking hope he doesn't do it, because Anderson Silva is a much better fighter and champion than this fella ever will be. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, when I'm saying respect to these fighters, when I'm talking about a fighter, Anderson Silva was just, and is, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. And I mean, even to his older ages, he was still doing it. I mean, he chinned Bisping as well too, don't forget that. And he was able to go up in weight class and stuff like that and handle people, and you know, he is the greatest ever. But that to me, like, when you're looking at him and what he was able to do and the striking ability as well too, that to me was a real fighter. And the jiu-jitsu also as well. Whereas you're talking about a guy here that's known more for pinning fellas against cage and lying on them than he is for KOing fellas or doing anything like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. I don't mean to devalue Kamaru Usman's achievements or anything like that, but to me, that record firmly being still in Anderson Silva's pocket means an awful lot, and it means an awful lot to fight fans. It really does, I have to say. But again, credit to Leon Edwards here. I was very happy to see him with the win. I'm looking forward to it. I love the post-fight reaction. Look at me now. Look at me now. It was very funny. But last thing I'm going to say, if you're a friend of Luke Rockhold and you happen to see this video at all, please check in on this fella. Keep an eye on him. Get talking to him. Maybe get him into talking to someone, a psychiatrist or something like that, a therapy or something like that. This guy needs it. I'd be concerned about him, that's to say the very least. I know that's leaving her on a bit of a dour note, but listen, someone needs to check in on this fella. This looked like a guy that didn't look really right there during that fight, and I have to be honest with you, it made for a wonderful spectacle, but at the same time, looking at it and looking at the carelessness as well too, it was worrisome, I will say that. But again, fair play to Paulo Costa, fair play to Merab as well too, put on a good show with Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo did great as well too. It's great to see him still going around, fair play to him. But very happy with the champion now being Leon Edwards, I have to say, very pleased with that. So anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads. Check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. Drop a comment below. What did you think of UFC 278, where the victors that you thought were going to come out? Did you put anything on these fellas to win? Because I'm sure the odds on Leon Edwards were probably outrageous. I'd say if you stuck a tenner on that, or even 100 quid on Leon Edwards, you're probably out to making a good few quid on it. I'd say Birmingham was up in absolute roar on the weekend if they had to put a few quid on this fella, because I think the odds probably would have been